I just went and pulled a list. I didn't realize this in my career. But when they owe a tax lien, they probably got no mortgage on the property because the banks learned lessons in the late 2000s where a lot of tax was not paid through escrow. So they lost a lot of debt value by people buying these liens and foreclosing. So they've now, certainly the FHA and VMs, they pretty much expect you to collect the insurance and the tax through escrow. So they know that they're not going to be losing that asset or losing the for that note.
You're listening to the AZREIA Show. If you're looking for quality real estate investing information that you can trust, you've found it. Stay tuned and join the tens of thousands of members that have already benefited from AZREIA, your home for education, market information, support, and networking opportunities that will advance your real estate investing career.
Welcome to another episode of the AZREIA Show. I am your host, Marcus Maloney, and we have our executive director and co-host, Mike Del Prete.
Hello, hello.
And on video, Mike is sitting to my left now instead of sitting to my right, so we have to adjust. But without further delay, we want to thank you and welcome you guys for being here, listening to the AZREIA Show. Remember, if you need any great content regarding real estate investing, go to AZREIA.org. But without any further delay, we have Trystan Trenberth here today. That's a tongue twister, Trystan.
Trent, a few times. I think I've got it.
Yeah, he's here today, and he has a very unique background coming from technology and now into the real estate space. And we just want to have a candid conversation today and just talk about real estate investing in general, because we know you do creative deals, all kind of deal structures. We were talking about pad split earlier. So Trystan, man, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I appreciate having me on here. It's been a few months coming, but thank you so much for me.
All right. So I know I didn't do your bio and your background any justice, man. So kind of give us your backstory. Who are you? Who is Trystan?
Sure. So from career perspective, I started out in the hotel trade. So I started out at hospitality school in the UK. I did a couple of months in Palm Beach in 1994, which was my first time in the US. And did 2 or 3 more years in hospitality after that. And then I went quickly into IT. I was very interested in technology back when the Pentium 560 was back in those days when things are this big. And from then I went through the hotel industry in the IT business, through to healthcare, and then most recently the financial business. The company that ran Zelpay, they're based here in Scottsdale. That was my most recent post. I actually switched over in the last 2 or 3 years into infrastructure security architecture, which was, ethical hacking basically. Although some of the team would do that. I wasn't that heavy into it, but it was just making sure that products were safe. So I came to real estate with an idea of how data should flow.
Okay.
But I'm not an integrator. I really didn't have a great passion for IT. The further you go into it, the more you specialize and the more kind of restricted you are. In some ways, that's kind of how I felt in that situation. But after having Rich Dad pour down on the shelf for a year or two and then actually reading, that's where it all began.
Okay. So Robert Kiyosaki opened your eyes to real estate.
Yeah.
And so once your eyes were open, what was the next step? What did you do next?
I went on to Google and didn't realize they knew that I was looking for things as much as they did. And then next thing was Elite Legacy. Bless them.
What's that?
So Elite Legacy used to be branded Rich Dad Education. He licensed his name to them for a number of years, but 2 or 3 months in, he pulled out, or the license agreement ended. I'm not sure which it was. But I did a 2-hour intro over at one of the Scottsdale hotels. That then led to the next carrot, which was the $800 three-day event, where I thought that was where I was going to learn everything. And that was the carrot that led me to the $35,000 upsell.
Yeah.
Which I still didn't learn much. They were great at selling education.
Okay.
But they weren't really so good at delivering education.
I
wasn't inspired to take action, and I take on a lot of that responsibility back. But getting into this business and then meeting some of the personalities like you guys in town, it's a very different perspective of them trying to teach something to make it sound really much easier than it really is, into having people that you want to work with and collaborate with. And, that was one of the lessons I didn't take on early enough, was collaborate with people more.
Yeah.
Did my
There you
first
go.
deal with somebody, but there was a long lead time to getting there because as a lot of people getting into investing, they think they got to wear every hat in the business and do everything themselves instead of just plugging themselves into a conveyor belt, being part of a process,
There you go.
leveraging the skills they have from their background. So it's an easier transition.
And,
Oh, no, you're good.
oh, okay. And that's one of the things that people misunderstand when they start out in real estate. Really, when they start out in business, they think that they have to wear every hat.
Yeah.
And they take a little bit too long in order to see that, hey, you know what, I need to just be plugged into a process without trying to create the whole process and the
Reinvent the
whole.
wheel.
Exactly. And it's a good thing that you came to wisdom with that process early in
Yeah.
your real estate journey.
Well, that's the L in ideal. Why real estate's an ideal investment, leverage,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And you also, just to backtrack a little bit, you mentioned takes work. They
Absolutely.
make it seem
Yeah.
easier than it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, man. It's like,
Yeah.
It could get confusing watching online and everyone's doing 5 deals a month, 10 deals a month. Just follow me.
Yeah.
Then when you actually go to do it could let you down a little bit. It's a little blow to the gut,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's kind of when I go back to, my most favorite saying that I coined is, education without implementation is just information. And that's what a lot of people do. They feel like they need to just go and get all of this education and they can talk about everything. They can talk about, raps and creative finances and subject to you and things like that. And you ask them, okay, well, how many deals have you done? Oh, you know what? I'm just kind of getting started. Yeah, but you know a lot of the jargon, but you haven't gotten started. So, man, kudos to you, Trystan, for just jumping out there and really seeing that, hey, I need to be plugged into a process.
Yeah.
And then just follow the flow,
Yeah.
of that team.
So what was that flow for you? So you did the Rich Dad education.
Yeah. So I was upsold to Jason. This is 2-day blueprint. Lovely guy. Used to work for.
So there's another upsold over the 30.
It wasn't technically an upsell, but they were one of the corridor sales people. But I've come to love Jason Alistair very quickly. He was a really likable guy.
Okay.
He was with Damon Remy. He was part owner of REI Black Book originally.
Okay.
He sold his portion to Damon and then started, he's based in St. Louis. They were based in Florida, I think, but he's got a 2-day event that he does quite often, which, delivers 40 or 50 different strategies of marketing. A lot of home investors go to
I think I know who you're talking about. Does he work with like Sean?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Also, I met him.
So I met a guy called Grayson Cupfer before all of this. Turns out he was one of the people that I, met through the blueprint. He was the person I did my first deal with. From doing Jason's program, I really kind of aligned with the tax lien strategy of, in Arizona specifically, marketing to people that were at least, 3 years or approaching 3 years in delinquency that could be foreclosed in Arizona. The redemption period was coming up. So we did one mailing campaign. We got my first deal. We got 2 under contract, I think it was. Some guy sold to us. We filed a memorandum of that one 3 hours before it closed, which obviously didn't index for the title company. But nonetheless, it was a deal where I learned not just tax delinquency. I learned about probate, title issues. What else? Negotiate credit card liens. I got about $80,000 of credit card debt down to $17,500. Corrected some title issues, probate stuff. David a small airship. So it was a great intro deal
out there.
I look at a lot of these people that want to have a slammed up, a layup. I think that's a disadvantage to people because it gives them the wrong impression of how it needs to be. And maybe that gave me the wrong impression. I think every deal needs to be difficult because the last year and a half, I've been the guy that says, I'll negotiate this, I'll negotiate this, I'll take
That's where the money's at.
Yep.
The money's there often, but sometimes it isn't because it takes so long to do it. Maybe I'll talk about this one later on. There's a deal in Albany that took 18 months to close. I never bought the deal, but I paid the mortgage for almost 18.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's
to get it closed. Yeah.
I'm thinking the wholesale brain, right?
Yeah.
So but real quick, a lot that we can cover there. So first on tax lien, can you just clarify? Because a lot of people, they watch the commercials, invest in tax liens.
Yeah.
What you said is a whole nother approach that a lot of people might be familiar with.
Yeah.
Can you explain the difference?
Sure. So, one of those, I think there's an event this weekend or last weekend that's in town. They come once, twice, once every quarter or something. and they talk to you about buying tax liens. So Arizona's 16% interest is the top interest rate you can get paid, but it's almost like a reverse auction. So I see that Paradise Valley mansion owes tax for a year.
Yep.
I can go bid on that lien to pay 20 grand's tax, but the return for those people is a longer term return. So they're looking to make money from the interest they're going to be paid on the money owed. So when the house sells or when they pay off the lien, they make up to 16% interest.
Right.
But if you've got a beautiful house, they've not paid the tax on the property, then you'll probably have to say, well, Mike's going to turn up. He's going to bid on that one. He's going to bid 15%. Well, you're going to turn up. I'll take 12% for that. On the gamble that you can potentially foreclose on the property. I think there's two mindsets in this as well. That should be highlighted. In the tax lien purchasing or acquisition strategy, you've got some people that I may not align with that just want to buy the lien in the hope that they can foreclose and potentially kick the family out of the house and make money, or the ones that will just sit and take the Warren Buffett approach and just wait for the money to roll in when it comes, but then be just waiting for that. So then that's the acquisition lien strategy. I think Texas is 24% maybe.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
There's varies from state to state. And then you've got different redemption criteria as well. Sometimes you can redeem a house after the auction for a year or two. So that's where an investor may not do any work on the property. They've just got to sit on it and pay tax for 2 years to wait for the previous owner to expire their statutory limitation so they can buy paying that lien off. But stick with Arizona. So buying the liens is one way. But what I did was I just went and pulled a list. I didn't realize this in my career, that when they owe a tax lien, they probably got no mortgage on the property, because the banks learned lessons in the late 2000s where a lot of tax was not paid through escrow. So they lost a lot of debt value by people buying these liens and foreclosing. So they've now, certainly the FHA and VA loans, they pretty much expect you to collect the insurance and the tax through escrow. So they know that they're not going to be losing that asset or losing the for that note. So, that's why in this day and age, you see very few properties that have a mortgage and a tax lien. So that's why the level of distress is probably a lot higher. If they've only got to pay a $1,500 a year tax bill and they've got no debt on the property, there's probably a serious problem.
What do we look for? That's what we do.
And what you said, Trystan, which is very, very key, you said you learned earlier in your career to work on those hard problems, because those hard problems, like you said, sometimes there is a lot of money in them, but it can take a lot of time in order to figure out all of those problems. And as real estate investors, that's what we bring to the table, is that creativity to figure out, okay, how can I solve this problem for this homeowner so I can then be able to invest in this property and get the deal. So you guys that's out there listening, you have to understand the majority of the deals, especially off market, they're going to be difficult to close. So don't look for the slam dunks. Yeah, they do happen. Yes, we thank God for those slam dunks, but a lot of them, it's going to take 2, 3, 4, and in your case, 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're about to go to the hotel tax lien auction, take Tristan's approach first. That's what I would do.
And the other thing I dealt with deal on Illinois Street, I think it was 1745 Illinois Street. The other thing we dealt with was squatters. They brought a mobile home, which is actually an office type mobile home, that they're just kind of parked their wheels off and everything. And I needed to also hire a company to tow that. With the agreement of the squatters to move it to a place in West Phoenix. Turned out the guy was born in the UK, been in jail and stuff. They weren't nasty people or anything. They were nice people. They were just where they were. And again, it's for us to solve problems. It's not necessarily just the seller. And this is a secondary problem that I got to solve. We managed to sell the land. We bought it. We paid off the liens, helped the lady pay off some of her other tax liens or other property, and she was lovely. She was very happy about that.
Well, let's talk about that. And I think you just have a story on that, Marcus. When we're looking for problems, and then like a homeowner, they're dealing with squatters or a situation, their life's over. It's like, oh my God, squatters, I can't handle this. But us as professional service providers, we know how to work. You got to build that skill through these experiences. You can work around it, and sometimes it's really not as bad as you think.
It's just relating to these people, build a rapport. Just say, look, I'm in the middle of this situation. I'm doing this to help this person. How can I help you? Because very often they feel threatened. And I think there's been 3 or 4 situations where I've dealt with people that weren't invited to stay. And I just did one right now. We've just helped the guy move out. We bought as a probate lead in Black Canyon City, the one I mentioned about. So the guy that owned the place died, I think it was probably about a year ago or so now. He had a girlfriend, but he was estranged from his family. That they hadn't really been in touch for 5 or 10 years. She reached out to them to see if they would sign the property over. Of course, they wouldn't. So the probate attorney reached out to me, and this is another valuable relationship strategy. Reached out to us, said, look, we need to sell the property. We don't know what it's going to be like. There's a lady living there that I don't think she's going to want to move out. Long and the short of it, there was solar on there that was turned off last year because they stopped paying.
Okay.
One thing we found out, there's no lease or debt on that now because they cancelled it. But that meant that her solar bill, electricity bills went up heavily. She hadn't been paying the mortgage. And by the time we got round to closing on it, and I drove up there, knocked on the door, she didn't obviously know who we were, but just explained, look, we're in the process of buying the property. I know this is going to be a shock. She was quite angry right at the beginning, but by the time she left, she said, thank you for being so good about it, got her phone number and everything. And there was a little bit more frustration, not towards me, but in the situation.
Yep.
But when I talked to her after she had moved out, she was already moving out because it was in foreclosure at that point. We didn't know there's an auction 3 months out. Thanks for being so good. Thanks for taking care of the situation. Yep. But there was a guy that lived in the shed.
Oh, wow.
And this is the guy that was
By the way, there's someone in the shed.
Yeah. She didn't give us his number initially. We went up there. A couple of us went up there at different times, knocked on the door. Of course, the shutters, moved and nobody opened the door. So we set up a landscaper to weed whack the front yard. And that, again, was a good way to do it because he knew we weren't going to knock on the door, wonder what was going on. They were able to speak to him and let him know, look, can we have your number? We want to help you move. Probably need a van.
Oh, wow, look
probably
at you.
need a truck.
Nice.
So we did that. We rented it for 2 days. He didn't take it back for 5 or 6 days, unfortunately. But in the process, he went through and cut the electric cable. They'd taken out the breakers because apparently there's an older one that's a bit more valuable, the units. But he cut the cords coming out of the breaker box. So even though they were jumpered and capped, he just cut them where they come in. So that's probably added 3, 4, 5 grand to the renovation, unfortunately. But we were working with him. I think that may have been before we got in touch with the van and everything else. But people are irrational. They're scared. He didn't necessarily have anywhere to go right at that time, but he was a hoarder as well. So we had 3 full dumpsters.
Two questions. So if the solar was canceled, is there a lien on the property?
There isn't.
Really?
No.
Wow.
Cool. All right.
That was a bonus.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
whoever buys it, they can pay somebody familiar with solar just to connect it back up again.
So they just can't. They don't come back and rip them off the house or nothing. Just all right.
No.
Yeah, it works for you.
It's different.
Well, Marcus, real quick. So a lot there, so we were talking about tax liens. You talked about squatters, stealing electricity, all the foreclosures, all these types of things. So it's a human business, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Relationships, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
And that's one of the things that I was going to mention to you, Trystan, is when dealing with squatters, they're human.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we take that humanistic approach and talk to them and find out what their situation is, because not all squatters are bad people. It's life circumstances that happen. And as real estate investors, we have to try and figure out what's the circumstance, what do you need to resolve the circumstance, and then how can we help? And once you start putting that best foot forward, then they see that, hey, this is not going to be a bad transition. Let me see what I can do to try and help these people, help me. Because that's what it's really all about.
Yeah.
So what happened next? So you linked up, you figured out leverage and joint venturing and following someone's system.
Yeah.
I know we went off on a couple unique deals, but what was the next step?
So I was working my 9 to 5 until early 2021. So I hired a virtual assistant, Mike and not you.
Oh, you a virtual assistant?
Yeah, it was actually his virtual assistant before all this. Yeah.
10 out of 5. But yeah, so I had a cold caller, but it was one cold caller, and it wasn't really enough to generate sufficient leads. Working a day job, I was straddling two worlds. That I wanted to exit one, but wasn't ready to exit IT. Wasn't ready to fully get into real estate either.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the time or necessarily the experience at that point to train the VA. I didn't set him up for success. We got to contextualize these things. I want to talk about VAs briefly as well.
Sure.
Go for it.
That's a huge topic, and
It
everything is context and recontextualizing things. Oh, VAs are terrible, or the data's terrible, the dial is terrible. Well, you got three huge variables plus yourself in the situation, or the training of the VA, and again, another human being, not a commodity. They're all human beings feeding their family. We need to be as supportive and helpful. They'll only succeed if we succeed, and we'll only succeed if they succeed. So it's a chicken and egg. Oh, my data's bad. Oh, have you looked at the dialer to see how many drop calls you've got? Are you getting too many drops? Are you not getting enough dial time? I don't understand these systems. I understand the principles behind, well, okay, your dialer looks good. Well, the VA sucks. How much time do you spend with them?
Yep.
Well, I talk to them every day. Oh, how much time do you do calibrating the calls, talking to them, coaching them, listening to the calls with them, having them feedback to you what they learned from the call, and sharing what you can see on the call as well. Well, I'm not a salesperson. Could be a problem then. How are you going to teach somebody that does laundry to build a house and expect them to do that? Do you know what I mean? It's like two very different things. How can you get some help? There are people that train VAs. There are services that provide trained VAs. You can obviously tweak the nuances to make it fit your business, but there are many different lead generation sources, and it all comes back to, well, you got shitty data. What data do you get? Well, I just pulled some addresses from here. I heard that Pace or Jamil or somebody said pull this list. Would you know exactly what you're looking for? Yeah, I think so. Well, what else have you stacked that with? What do you stack? So it just all comes back to a big soup.
It is.
You can have all the same ingredients, but unless you put the right ingredients in the right proportions, and whether it's stock concentrated rather than diluted, unless you get everything together and keep tasting it along the way, don't keep changing things every 2 minutes or every 2 days. Give it 60 days. Start looking at the data. Is things improving as your VA gets more experience? Is the dialer doing what it needs to do and checking all of these things along the way? And get some outside help.
Yeah.
Partner with somebody. If you've got, I lead a group here in Arizona, and when people come to me, which I try and talk to as many newer people as I can.
Yeah.
My first question to them is, so what do you do in your current career? What was your last career? What gave you joy about doing that? That gives me the first key to, you shouldn't wholesale.
Right.
How so? Give us an example.
Whatever their thing is, or maybe they should wholesale. You got one, I think Brett Daniels told me this. You got the 3 T's, time, talent, and treasury. You can bring one or more of those things to a situation. I've got a full-time job. I don't have the time, but I might have the treasury or the funds to be able to hire a VA or pay for leads to come in. And I may not have the talent to be able to follow up and close the deals. Depends on whether they're inbound leads or outbound leads, another conversation. Maybe if I got inbound leads, that might not be the right combination unless I've got somebody available to pick up those leads. Right. And again, partner with somebody. Okay, I've got a $2,000 a month budget, a $1,000 a month budget. I'm going to pay a VA. I'm going to get a dialer. I'm going to buy this data. I'm going to get all of this stuff, but I don't know how to use it. Is it more efficient to give somebody $1,000 a month to get maybe 5% of what they're going to generate in revenue or learn from what they're doing, or have first option to buy the deals if you're buying as well?
Right.
Put an ingredient in somebody else's soup to improve that one, rather than just try and cut carrots with a
butter knife.
You know what I mean?
So there was a lot there, Trystan. And one of the things that I want to discuss, piggyback on what you said, was when me and Mike, we do our Deal Finders Club, that's one of the things that we see is people try to throw everything in a box. So we talked about VAs. We talked about what we call the ideal seller avatar. Who are you attracting? Who are you trying to find? Because a lot of people figure, oh, I just hire a VA, give them a list, upload it in a dialer, and they know what to do. Just let them go. And then they, like you said, they complain about, why isn't this working? Why am I not making $15,000 tomorrow like all of these gurus said?
Or this afternoon.
Yeah,
This time of year.
yeah, or this afternoon. So we always teach them, understand who your ideal market is. Yes, this is Phoenix. And people say, well, my market is Phoenix. Well, within Phoenix, you have different areas. So you have the East Valley, the West Valley, the North Valley, South Phoenix. You know, you have Scottsdale. What area are you looking in? And then even break it down even further when you're looking at each area of the valley. Okay, what neighborhoods, what zip codes? You have to dig down
Medium
even
price
deeper.
point in South Phoenix, medium price point in Paradise Valley. So many
Exactly.
different things.
Exactly. It's so many variables. And then once you understand, okay, this is the area that I'm going to target. Now, who in that area am I going to target? Like I always tell people, my buyer avatar is the Johnsons. They're older. They may have owned the house for 20 plus years. You know, the house is probably 1,900 square feet. It's too big. They're ready to downsize. So now,
Maybe 2-story.
yeah, it may be 2-story. So I always train our VAs to listen for that. You know, listen, try and figure out and find the Johnsons. And if it's not the Johnsons, what variation of the Johnsons is it? And in that way, you can learn how to work with them and
Yeah.
solve those problems. So, I mean, you hit it right on the head. It's people take this shotgun approach and they just want to say, all right, well, I'm hiring the VA and then I don't have to do anything. I can step back and get instant leads, and it just doesn't work that way.
It's like finding somebody on the street and expecting them to be a plumber
Yeah.
and
It
fixing
really
the toilet.
is.
You haven't given them the tools or
I
anything.
haven't given them the
Or
tools.
you give them the tools, but they don't know what to do with them. You know, what's that analogy that you hire a plumber, he charges you $1,000 for fixing your hot water tank because he whacked it with a hammer on the top.
Mhm.
Person complains, well, why is that $1,000? You just hit the thing with a hammer. Well, it's only $10 to hit it with a hammer, but it was $990 for the 10 years of experience that taught
Right.
me when and where to hit the hot water tank.
True.
So how, going back into when you meet first meet the new person getting in our business, it's the mindset, right? It's like
Yep.
they even to even have them start thinking creative leverage, because I think a lot of people are trained of, hey, this is like I would always say, hey, let's split deals to like bird dogs or whatever. I would get a lot of feedback like, this is my deal. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean split it? You know, they can't even comprehend just the way they're raised, or that's how you do things.
Do you remember
Mhm.
at high school, elementary school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do that on your own. Stop looking at the
Yep.
other
Stop
paper.
looking at the other.
Don't help him.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
And it's bred into the world's culture through education.
Yeah.
So true.
So-
It's you have to figure it out on your own, and that's not the way life is.
Sure.
Life is you have to, like you said earlier, you got to collaborate. You got to bring your partners to the table. You got to leverage, like you said, Mike. And by doing that, you can go a lot further, faster. But like you said, the educational system taught us, you know, it's you by yourself,
Yeah.
individual, and the only way you succeed is by being an individual, and that's just not the way life works.
Yeah, and it's just the scarcest mindset. I've been working on myself since 2008, and I didn't know the depths of levels that I could go to. I mean, I'm in a couple of them, a really amazing group right now, thanks to Jamil, and there are some incredible people in there. Mike
Mhm.
Ferry was a big real estate trainer for the
Mhm.
agent side of
Mhm.
things, probably the most well-known in the States. His son Matthew used to work for him for a number of years. Went off on a, very much more of a spiritual journey of seeking the answer.
Mhm.
And in 2016, he wrote a book called Quiet Mind, Epic Life,
Okay.
which talks about quieting the drunk monkey in your mind that keeps giving you the doubt,
Mhm.
takes the peace away from you. And it really brings it back to a few core things, one of which is your opinion is the source of your suffering.
Mm.
Well, that's my deal. Oh,
Mhm.
doesn't sound like your deal unless I help you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, if we make it a preference, then it's flexible.
Mhm.
I'd prefer to keep the deal. Well, how can I help you get it across the line? Is there something I can do to nudge you along? Great. But it sounds like one of the interview questions is when you bring a JV partner on is, so tell me about the deal. Oh, this, and this. So where do you think you're lacking? Where are you getting stuck? What do you need to do after that? Well, I'm not sure. And you find out where they're going to get stuck so that you can offer advice from the point they are, or maybe rewind it a little bit and say, well, if we talk about this and this, maybe we can do something like that might allow us to give a better outcome for the seller, a different outcome for the seller, a different option, maybe multiple options.
Mhm.
And really taking that scarcity away. And because like you said, That's my deal.
So you're reframing. So as
Reframing.
you're the 9 years of being a plumber
Recontextualizing, yeah.
is what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So that's good for us experienced investors when you get that newer person that you could
Yeah.
truly help, but they just can't see the vision. Reframe how you present it. I don't know if you heard of sleight of mouth patterns. I was just working on those yesterday. Yeah. So, but it's very helpful, like in therapy. So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about that, man. I like that because we're talking about mindset, newer people. Let's help the newer person understand the importance of working with experienced investors. Or maybe I always get asked, I'm sure we all do, how do I work with you, or how do I find who do I trust? How do I find a mentor? Get all those types of questions. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to tell who to trust. I was hesitant about real estate in the beginning after seeing some of these closers and, car salesman types that I had maybe I'd seen one and I'd kind of painted the brush that, I've come across a lot of slimy people, knock on wood, somewhere.
No wood around here.
No wood here.
I think I've seen a couple people that have been in my periphery, but I'm not looking for it, so I'm not finding it.
Right.
I'm looking for good people. I'm looking for helpful people and supportive people, and I'm being that helpful, supportive person myself. Regardless of my level of knowledge, it's like, you go to your physician. Well, I got a problem with this. Okay, well, let's narrow down what it is. Okay, now you need to see the specialist. Same with real estate. You can get to a certain point of your knowledge, but you've got to be willing to be able to hand it off and JV with another person if you need to. You get to your point of, your ceiling, then somebody else has gone through that before. There's a bunch of people. It's finding that right person that has the mindset of probably can't help you, then give Mike a call. He's the guy you need to talk to about that. And just be willing to release things and let go. There's the commitment versus attachment. You heard that kind of theory. You can be so attached to getting every deal and every penny out of a deal that you won't let one go or many go.
Yeah.
But if there's, like you were talking to the ideal avatar, if it's outside your ideal avatar, I don't want it.
I don't want it.
Because it blocks you getting another one that is your ideal one from coming along. Another thing with Matthew Ferry, him and Thach Nguyen wrote a book about networking around 2011, 2012. And they got a 4-step process called giving the gift. First stage is really the winning friends and influence kind of approach. Let somebody talk, connect with somebody deeply, find out about them, let them talk about themselves, what their goals are, what they're aspiring to. The second thing is try and provide some value on the spot. Mike, that's brilliant. I love you doing that. I met a guy at a conference last month, become really good friends with him. He's actually doing more of that. Sounds like that might be a great place, a great person to go and connect to. Or I actually do that myself. I can help you with that deal. I can do that, that wrap or whatever it is you need done. Or, somebody on my network will know somebody that knows how to do that. Let's exchange details. And I always exchange details and take a photograph with somebody at an event. So you got the context. Oh, shit, it was AZREIA. I remember meeting him. Now that brings back some of the context. But either way, you take it on the road with you. And then so connect with somebody deeply, try and provide some value on the spot. Then generally the person, if they're interested in you, are they're a genuine person. So Mike, tell me what you do. Comes back to you, winning friends and influence people, or to really let the person talk. Wow, Mike was really interesting. He listened to me. But then I asked Mike what he did. He told me all about what he was doing. So then you're really giving your buy box. If it's in a real estate meeting, it's giving what I'm looking for in my life. I'm looking for an investor to come into a $25 million deal in the Bahamas right now, $120 acre development. And we've got an option agreement right now, shovel ready, all of the stuff that we need. Now, if I didn't share that with somebody, how is somebody going to think, oh, I know somebody in Florida that does developments, or, would you consider a capital partner on it? Yeah, absolutely. They're not going to know what you want. It's not always going to turn out that way, but if they got that at the back of their mind, somebody called me on Tuesday or Wednesday last week, and they said, oh, is this Trystan? I'm about a project in the Bahamas. Somebody told me you got a project I might be able to help with. Still don't know who it was that told him. I said, at the end of the call, do you mind letting me know who shared my number with you? I think it was in a Grant Cardone group or something. not in a Grant Cardone group.
Yeah.
But
Right.
by me giving the gift with somebody and sharing what I am looking for, somebody, whether it's, and that's the fourth law you can come around to, is the universal law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Whatever you put out there, it'll come back. It's
back.
not a transaction where you give them $10, they give you a
Mhm.
bag of potatoes or whatever. But it just gets out there in the universe. And the more you confidently and clearly talk about that, the clearer you are to the universe for that to bring it back to you from over there or back here, somewhere around.
So
You
true.
know?
And that universal
said.
law of reciprocity, what I like about it is that you don't need it until you need it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you said, I don't want to give $10 and then immediately get a bag of potatoes, but I want to be able to give that $10 and then when I really need something,
Yeah.
then it end up showing up, like you said about the Bahamas. So people have to keep that in their forefront of their mind because they think everything is so transactional. It's I give and I get, I give and I get. And sometimes you just have to give without the expectation of receiving anything on the back end. And guess what? When you really need it, something will pop up, like you said, in your periphery, and you'll be like, wow, you know what? This was the perfect time when I needed this with this perfect situation, and I'm doing it with the perfect person.
Yep.
So,
yeah. I mean, let's talk about the Go-Giver, Brandon Simmons.
Yep.
The first law is give more value than you receive in financial in compensation. A lot of people are willing to receive, but they're not necessarily willing to, in the scarce mindset we talked about, provide some compensation for your time or whatever. Now, you're willingly giving more than you receive, but there is, in that context, some sort of reciprocity there,
right.
more of a transactional level. But we can still look at these as transformational relationships instead of transactional relationships, because we build social capital. Some people call it karma, but it's really just building goodwill in the universe by giving to people. And step over nobody. If they look funny, they look strange, they sound strange. Somebody may know somebody that by speaking to them and just giving yourself to them as you would any other human being and not judging people, those are the biggest paybacks. You're never going to know who it is or what it is.
Yeah.
But it again comes back to the beginning, whether they're a squatter, a seller, whoever they are, they're human beings. If we can connect to them fully, everyone. And there's a town in Gloucester in the UK called Alidney, I think it's called. And there's an expression where, let's compare it to maybe, is it like Kentucky or somewhere where there might be some common relationships, should we say?
Okay.
There's
Familial relationship.
Familial relationship. Exactly. Kick one in the leg, the whole town limps.
Right.
But if we look at the universe, there's a book by Dr. David Hawkins called Power versus Force. Have you read that one?
No, I heard of it though.
So it brings up, ironically, the British Empire being a force that went and forced their way around the world and dominated a lot of countries. But it was the power of energy and the power of Gandhi that overcame the British Empire. So whenever there's force, there's resistance.
True.
I try and push the wall, there's a resistance to equal. Every force is an equal and opposite force. But when we use the power, we're actually being for something, not against it. And if we look at life as always going our way, even when it isn't, we recontextualize it to look for the beauty in what we're experiencing as an experience, not a problem. We look at life very differently.
Yeah. Because every experience, and this is one of the things that I always have to remind myself is every experience is working for your betterment. Even if it's bad experience, a good experience is working for your betterment, because you can, if you have the right perspective and you take the right approach, you'll see how it helps you, down the long run, So, for example, a mother losing the child at a young age, at the time that was a terrible experience, but I can guarantee you years down the road, that mother can look at that experience and say, wow, because of that, I learned this, or I gained this, or I learned to use wisdom, or it taught me patience. It taught me how to look at the next person and learn how to be more reflective in what their situation is going through. So that's one of the ideas that I try and carry, every day is, what did I learn today? And no matter what the experience is, and if people can go about their lives by doing that, it eliminates that transactional relationship all the time.
Yeah.
So if I could share my
Sure.
number one sales strategy that'll make you $1 million, right? So everyone asks me, what do you do for sales? What do this? I don't go through any of those programs or any of that. If you just take what you just heard for the last 10 minutes or 40 minutes, right? And you approach life that way and people that way, it naturally happens. If that makes sense in some way.
Yeah.
Yes, there are sales tactics and things you can do on the moment, but I think that's always been my approach with homeowners, truly trying to say, hey, how can I get you out of this? You know what I mean? Versus like grind, you know?
Yep.
It was a mentor told me the friction is to motion as resistance is to persuasion. So if you just have that natural law of truly being everything we talked about, that resistance comes down and you just have a good flow, you know? So good stuff, man. Could talk all day, but we've been on for like 45 minutes.
Absolutely.
What else we got to cover?
Sleep yet?
Nah, man, I'm awake. I love it.
So what's next for you, Trystan?
So right now, as I was mentioned before, I'm buying a lot of creative deals. I'm always looking for more capital partners, private money lenders, etc., for entry fees. We've got a great property on 21st Avenue and Adams. We did a flip walk there a couple of weeks ago, one of my communities. I organize these flip walks. I think we've got one in Scottsdale with somebody in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But
cool.
We're buying a house that I worked on probably for 10 months. 2 separate JV partners brought the deal to me over the last, I think one was August, one was September, October. We're buying the house subject to the guy who's in pre-foreclosure. We're finally closing on it probably tomorrow, maybe the next day. FHA loan. And we've got the seller had a loan modification done where he did a partial claim. Money's on the back end. And we're actually turning it to a pad split, which is it's a relatively new company, but it's an old concept. There's roommates.com that's been around for 20 plus years, I think. So I think they pitch it as you're bringing the multifamily model to single family properties. I like it because we're able to convert a 3-2 into a 7-3. And by dividing the family room into 2 bedrooms, then converting another area of the property as well. So it means that we've got 7 individual tenants. There's only going to be 1 person in each room. Each room will have a lock, kind of like an Airbnb, like midterm rental type thing with nurses where you might rent the property out room by room. So we should never be 100% occupied.
Right.
Or, sorry, 100% vacant.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll be 100% occupied. But it means we're much more flexible instead of that binary pattern with a single family where we might make $1,800, $1,900 a month gross. We're going to be charging between $2 to $225, I think, a month on average for the rooms. Sorry, $225 a week per room. So even if we just look at 200, because I'm not great at maths, that should be $1,400 a week.
That's amazing, man.
So if you relate that into 15% service fee from pad split, taking their background check, work, managing the tenant relationship, but not managing the property and collecting the money, that translates to a huge cash flow, probably in the region of $2,000 a month after the private money. And, we'll obviously I'm going to start out with a 15% vacancy repairs fund just so I can get some capital put away for that particular property. But at that point, I'm just going to start funneling money back to the private lender. So we pay down the principal of the interest, instead of being just interest only, we'll funnel a chunk of that change through the lender. She's incredible. Her husband's amazing. We're actually starting a business together, 4 of us, Ilana, Myra, and Cedric. And we've all got very different strengths and experiences. So, and we're all kind of grown-ups as well. There's a lot of young guys in the game, love them to bits, but they don't necessarily have the life experience, not always as relatable.
And don't have a business acumen.
This is right. To be honest, I don't have the business acumen. I come from a W-2 job for, a number of years where I got very gray.
But you have PhD in life. You know how to treat people and do business.
Absolutely. So, you probably noticed I'm a very relationship visionary type guy. Love talking to people, helping people, solving problems, plugging people in. And, it's a way that we can leverage each other's skills to, bring solutions to people and have fun doing it. And that's the huge thing. When it's not fun, there's not flow. We're in resistance when it's not fun. And coming back to your ideal avatar, if you stand in the way of those avatars, you're going to be in resistance. Another of these damn deals that let it go. Be clear on what you want. Be clear on what you're marketing for. Let those things come in. Pay a referral fee. Get a referral fee for someone to say, look, I'm never wholesaling these things. I'll give it to you.
True.
Just give me 20, 30%. I did the marketing and closed the deal, or, 5-10% referral, whatever the deal is, be part of the universe, which is one. Coming back to, Lydney and Gloucestershire, we kick each other. We're kicking ourselves. We are one energy just expressing itself in infinite variety.
And guys, if you want to learn more about pad split, what Trystan is talking about, go back to last week's episode. You'll hear from Ellis Tran, the account exec, and he does a deep dive into pad split, how it's a benefit, for real estate investors and for the community as a whole. So, man, great that you're doing that with Ellis.
Yeah. Ellis has been super helpful, and a lot of home investors doing this, where I think they're getting DCSR loans and that type of stuff, which are kind of pricey at the moment. It's a way they can create some cash flow and, get depreciation as well. The way I'm buying deals is creatively. So I'm buying subject to, buying seller finance, so that my yield, even though it might be a 4 or 5% interest rate with, whether it's got VA loans. I started a campaign, we called it Mission Home Base, with a few of my friends. Just closed on a house 2 weeks ago, which is the only one that came from there. Mission Home Base was really to go after low equity VA loans.
Okay.
But then I realized, wow, damn, this payment's really high. That's not really working as a rental. Wraps are the exit for those, but now it's opening me up to, if the layout of the house is right, cash flow, massive amounts of money on a scale. So yeah, I'm just looking to buy more as low interest rate as possible, sub 2 deals, or seller finance deals at less than 10% entry fee, including assignment fees.
Okay.
And, less than 5% interest rate, ideally. I think I've got one at 5.25%, but the rest are below 5. Awesome, man. Just looking to, lap all of these up. And if you're not aware of how to work those, I'll be a huckleberry, as I think you say over here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to kind of say how they get in touch with you and stuff like that.
So before we go there, but as you guys can listen to Trystan, you see he know exactly what he's looking for. It's not again, like we said earlier, just a shotgun approach. Said he's looking for, VA, FHA loans, 5% below, interest rate. The entry rate, 10% below. So exactly what that box is. So if something comes in that box, you know what to do with it. And if it's not in that box, then you refer it out to somebody else.
Yeah. An entry fee, guys, it's cash to seller, if there is any. Arrears, because there may be arrears. Your assignment fee, renovations, holding costs, closing costs, and any marketing fees that you're going to use on the other end as part of your exit strategy, whether you're doing a wrap or whether you're, advertising it as a rental or, doing your pad split type thing.
Okay. So if you guys were listening, that was the explanation of an entry fee. So we're going to chop that up and we're going to use that because that's the example of an entry fee. So you guys will know what an entry fee is when you're out there trying to do these creative deals.
The other thing I'm looking at is return on investment, the ROI, which is how soon am I going to get my entry fee back from the money I put into the deal. Obviously, if I borrow PML, my ROI is infinite because I've got none of my money in there. But, I want to be able to pay that off. Ultimate cash flow is great, but I'd rather, remove that leverage. Cash on cash return, that's very important. I really want to be at 18% or above. After everything's said and done, with pad split makes it very easy. But those are the main things, 5% or below. And so interest rate, down payment, so the percentage down payment, 10% or less. Those are really the 4 things: ROI, cash on cash, down payment, and interest rate. Those are all the metrics I'm looking at to see whether it's a good deal.
Perfect.
Awesome. If we have, or someone out there in the world has what you're looking for, how do they get a hold of you?
So www.jv, joint venture with T, Trystan.com. So jvwitht.com, or you can find me on social media.
Awesome.
Trystan Trenberth.
Love it, man. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, perfect. We'll make sure we have all of that information in the show notes. You guys know exactly what to do. Get out there and take massive action. Trystan gave you some solid content for you to get out there and make sure you're doing things the ethical way, the right way. And for us here at AZREIA, we want to thank you and welcome you.
You're welcome.
Again, Trystan.
One other thing I'll let you guys know I specialize is probate.
Okay.
So we've got probate stuff. working with attorneys and also foreclosures. My partner, Maya, has 15 years experience with Chase. She issued mortgages in the beginning. She went through the whole loss mitigation department.
Wow.
She's done loan mods on the end of the bank, so she knows exactly what we're looking for. And we can help you through avoiding foreclosures, even if it's like, I would say preferably not less than 5 days away, because it takes us away from other important work. And the chances of stopping some of the auctions are little to none. But last week we stopped an auction a day ahead of an HOA auction that we didn't know about until the day before.
Oh, wow.
And that was after pushing the auction off 4 times for the property itself through the bank.
Wow.
And leveraging a 12-year-old divorce decree to force the sale of the property.
Amazing, man. Good stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
wow.
that's a whole
Yep.
story.
Yeah, it's
within
a whole
itself.
other hour. Awesome, man.
So guys, thank you so much for being loyal listeners to the AZREIA Show. Mike and I, we really appreciate you
Yeah,
guys
thank you.
being here. And you get the opportunity, please feel free to give us a 5-star review. Those reviews really encourage us and let us know exactly what content we need to bring to you all. So always feel free, go to AZREIA Show, give us a 5-star review, and let us know exactly how we're doing. Thank you so much.
I'd like to say
Thank you.
how amazing the transformation of AZREIA has been. You know, I joined right before COVID, so I met Alan and I did Robin Thompson's course.
Awesome.
And, you know, it was amazing content then. I remember me and Steve trained down there at the time and Tina and those guys. But the way you've transitioned and transformed this organization is remarkable. So, guys, it's not just 5-star reviews for the organization, but these 2 guys right in front of me have done an incredible job of making your life easier and shortcutting errors that you may have made. You know, make sure you thank these guys for that.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so
Of
much.
course.
Thank you for being here,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right,
guys,
we're up.
you know what
We're
to
up.
do. That's it. We'll see you next Friday at 8 a.m. So Friday, 8 a.m., every AZREIA show is released.
Thanks for listening to the AZREIA Show with your hosts, Marcus Maloney and Mike Del Prete. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found this information valuable, head over to AZREIA.org and learn more about our community.